Hi, welcome to Galaxy Dungeon. In this video, I'll be doing something different. I'll be analyzing the open world of a PlayStation 2 racing game called Need for Speed Underground 2. If you don't already know, here's the rundown of what Need for Speed Underground 2 is. Need for Speed is a racing game series published by EA Games, and it's been going on since 1994, which it was very popular in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, they released 7 Need for Speed games on the PlayStation 2 console. During this time, EA also started publishing another racing game series called Burnout, developed by Critteron Games, a company they bought in 2004. Every year from 2002 to 2008, EA published one Need for Speed game. The series is mostly about street racing. The second game on the console was called Need for Speed Underground in 2003. Underground removed pursuits with police, which most games of the series have, but featured a high amount of vehicle tuning. It also added many different types of events, such as drifting and drag racing. And the sequel, released in 2004, introduced something new that several more installments of Need for Speed added. It introduced an open world, a free roam area for the player to explore in a non-linear fashion. On the PlayStation 2, the new technology allowed open world games to be more advanced. First of all, a couple of games with cars used this to the extreme. A racing game series called Midnight Club did this with several games in the 2000s, and Grand Theft Auto 3, created by the same publisher, popularized the idea of an open world. Both games had a full city for the player to explore. So Electronic Arts, EA, got into the action by adding an open world to Need for Speed Underground 2. Although this open world has no police, which EA saved for a game coming out the next year called Need for Speed Most Wanted, Need for Speed Underground 2 was a hit. It has comic cutscenes, lots of customization like its predecessor, and many different racing events. Also, the open world is revealed piece by piece because you unlock new sections as you go. Throughout the open world, you can go from section to section to get to events on the map, and some of the races take up streets that you would go through on the open world. The game starts off in the city's core, where the player can explore a large zone in the middle of the map, but it's blocked off by barriers that lead outside of it. At first, your friend lets you use her car, a Nissan 350Z, until you meet her at a garage, where she'll let you pick up your first car. With it, you can get a taste of a more customized and faster car before you're reduced to one of the game's starter cars, which aren't as good. But during this time, you can still explore the city's core and play 2 races. Then you choose between one of 7 cars, which you get from money by trading in a totaled car and giving your friend back her car. Then the map opens up, and there are several different events and pickups to find. Plus, over time, you'll make money, which you'll use to improve and customize your car. The area has many different sections that look different, and the different events can be done in any order. The races take place on the same world map as the overworld, so if you explore the area, that knowledge will help you win races. After a few races, sponsors of the Underground League get involved. The events of the first section are circuits, sprint, drag racing, drift competitions, and Street X, a form of street racing on tight corner roads where in order to succeed, you have to find the right apex and lines to turn on. Plus, there are many other racers roaming that you can challenge to outrun races where you try to outrun your opponent by 1,000 feet. This is entirely in the open world. After beating a few races, you get access to Beacon Hill, a region north of the city core. Then, you need to make your car look better so you can enhance your car's look so you can get higher star ratings. With higher star ratings, sponsors will put your car on a magazine and DVD covers, and you'll get into more races. Since there is some choice in choosing your sponsor, there are many different races you could be challenged to, as each contract has an incentive to win certain races. Then, after beating another track, you get access to the Jackson Heights, a region in the mountains. A lot more races open up to you, which gives you time to build up your ride for a couple tournaments in the airport that you can access but won't stand a chance against until your ride is built up with a better engine. Then you can finally beat them. After this, you get access to the most southern area, the Coal Harbor. This gives you access to the entire map. The last region you unlock is the western area of Coal Harbor. After building your car up, finding all aftermarket parts, and winning all races, even ones that don't show up on the map, you can unlock the final race with the main villain. It's a long 5-lap race around a huge area. It starts in the Coal Harbor and takes the player through the eastern side of the city core, including Hotel Plaza and Fort Knott. It leads back into the Coal Harbor, and the player has to stay ahead of the only other racer, the main villain, Caleb, for 5 laps. First of all, these districts are all different, plus the open world is built in the third dimension rather than a flat landscape, as its bridges are at different elevations and so are the roads. This makes it so several routes near bridges and between areas can only be accessed by certain merge lanes. The city core is divided into many small districts: the Hotel Plaza, City Center, Stadium, South Market, Fort Union, and El Norte. All of these are different despite being right next to each other. Then there's the airport. There's 5 passages out of the city, and the main road circles the city core. 2 passages lead to the North Beacon Hill, while 1 leads to the airport, which ultimately leads to Coal Harbor, along with the other 2. Each of these districts has different kinds of buildings, with many different roads to take, which you can confuse opponents with during outrun races. Then, in the Beacon Hill, most of the streets are beneath the intersections, and to the east of the district, it's full of switchbacks, narrow alleys, and shortcuts. To the east, there's more rural areas with very few buildings and a memorial park. It's the only big circuit drivers have to race around. To the north, there's a mountainous area, Jackson Heights, full of canyons to drift around and sharp turns, but very few different routes. There's a few streets going down mountains that are home to the only drift competitions that aren't in an enclosed area, forcing the player to avoid traffic while drifting through sharp turns. It has some buildings, but only a few, and there are 4 intersections. The airport has a few loops next to a highway connecting Coal Harbor and the city center. There's 2 more connections between Coal Harbor and the city center, and it's full of different ways to turn, but most of the streets are pretty small. The west is mostly industrial and has a few shops. The areas form large circles for racers to race around, and it has open areas such as train tracks and power plants. So this is what the overworld of Need for Speed Underground 2 is like. Over the next few years, open worlds in arcade racing games became more common. For instance, Burnout and Need for Speed started using them regularly. It's nice to see what Need for Speed's first open world looks like. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.